Hello everyone and welcome to the ScrapbookPal channel. This is Shanna Makes It, and I am excited to announce that I'm part of the design team and I'm going to be working with some Pinkfresh Studio today. We have got the Cozy Blooms stamp set here, and this stamp set has some beautiful florals. You've got two large stamps that have the floral elements, and then you've got four sentiments. We've got time to celebrate, have a lovely day, lots of thanks, and hello friend. And then we also have the coordinating die that goes with this. And this die is fantastic, and we'll talk about that as we go to work with it. So this die cuts out all of the florals and all of the sentiments. And then in addition to that, I also picked up the coordinating stencil. And so we've got a 6-layer stencil here so that we can color up all of our cozy blooms and easily do it with a stencil. So it's a very neat set. So we're going to be working with this today, and let's get started. So I'm bringing in my Misty, and I've got just a full sheet of white cardstock that I'm going to stamp this on. I just covered my entire Misty. We've got a lot of landscape that we're going to cover here, and I'm going to get both of the big, large floral stamps down here on my Misty, and I'm also going to bring in the Hello Friend, and we're going to stamp these down. I will stamp the other sentiments later off camera in the video to show you, but we're just going to get these two large stamps stamped up, and then we will be able to work with them. Now I'm going to bring in the VersaFine Clair Nocturne ink, and you can pick this up in the shop as well. In fact, all of the materials that I show today will be linked in the description box below so that you can shop with those links, and we encourage you to do that. So I'm just going to get plenty of ink on these stamps. Now this is the first time I've used them, so I'm trying to make sure I get them good and inky, and then we'll get them stamped down and pressed, and we'll be ready to go. So I'm just taking my time and getting them all inked up, and then we'll give them a good press. Well, I think we've about got this all inked up, and so now we're just going to give it a good press. And we'll just get it stamped down very nicely and then open it up, and there we go. We've got our beautifully stamped images, and we've got our Hello Friend sentiment. Now, off camera, I realized that I had laid the stamps in an opposite direction of how the stencil was. So I took my stencil and made a line there so I could easily line up the 6 layers, and I'm just getting it positioned. This stencil has a top and a bottom section. The top section works with a large floral cluster, and then the bottom section works with the separate individual clusters. So I'm going to line this up, and you can see that larger stamp is what I'm lining this up with, and the top of the stencil will work with that larger stamp, and then the bottom with the smaller floral stamps. So I'm going to bring in, I've got some pink pixie tape, and I'll link it up as well. It's a good tape to use when you're doing your stenciling. And I am bringing in some distressed oxides to do my stenciling, and I will speed this up. We're starting out with spiced marmalade is what we're using. I'm just dabbing off a little bit on my glass mat. And I have sped this up because it does take a good bit of time to stencil all of these flowers with the 6 different layers. And so we're just going to get all of our layers, and I'm just going to keep stenciling, and we'll change our colors. On this, I'm using mustard seed for the roses that are in the center of the flower, and we're going to get that laid down on there. And then I'm just going to clean up my desk, and we're just going to keep going. And for this layer, I'm going to tape it down, and we're just going to bring in, I actually brought in crackling campfire for this and went darker. And I think I'll actually change it when we go on, because I'll grab a different color when I do the second stencil, and I like it better, and so I'll go over the top of it. So this was kind of more red, and we will come back and use another one. Now for the next color, we're going to use Rusty Hinge on it, and it's going to color up the centers of our roses there. And we'll just keep moving along. Now we've got our leafy and some of our little almost like berries, and I am using forest moss for it. I was just thinking fall. I knew this video is going to air in November, and I was just thinking fall colors, and so I was kind of taking some selecting my colors based upon that. Now we're going to bring in another leafy layer, and for that I was trying to debate on what color I wanted to use for that, and I decided to go with a brown. I had my green first, and then I thought that's not going to work, and I tested it out, and so then I brought in my ground espresso, and I'm just putting a little brown leaf with kind of the mossy, and I think they complement each other well, and they go along with kind of this fall theme that I have going. And so there we go. So now I'm spinning it, and I've made another mark on that. You can see the line there. That shows you where the separation of the stencil. So the top half uses the larger stamp, and then the bottom half uses the smaller. And I'm just going to get it lined up on here. I slowed it back down to just talk about the way the stencil works, and then we're going to speed it back up, and we're going to get our inking done. And so again, I've got rusty hinge here. And I think I am changing it up a little bit as far as the colors that I'm using. And now I've got my mustard seed. We're going to get it laid down on there. And I am using those wonderful blending brushes from Spellbinders, and you can pick those up in the shop as well. And I just keep reusing that pink pixie tape. Now here I think I've got my rusty hinge again, and I'm just bringing it in and coloring it up. And it is cold in my area, so the heat has kicked on. Hopefully you're not getting too much noise from that. So we're just going to layer up our stencil, and I think we're going to do the centers of our roses now, and I'm going to use the rusty hinge for that. And then we'll bring in our leafy layer, and we're going to go back to our forest moss, and I'm using some Post-it stickers just to cover up so that I don't mess up my other images that I've already colored. And then we're going to layer up our last leafy pieces, and we're going to use that ground espresso again and just finish it off. And you've just got some tiny little pieces there, and we're just getting those covered. So now we have everything colored beautiful, and I'm noticing that I did a couple of different colors. And so I'm going to bring my stencil back in. I'm going to line it back up, and I'm going to bring in that rusty hinge and cover up that crackling campfire. The cool thing about distress oxides are they'll lay on top of the color. So I was able to kind of match those back up by doing that. Now I am taking these dies. I love this. These are all connected, so you can lay them down just like you lay your stamp and get them all die cut out at one time. And the same for the other one. And I love that. I don't have to mess with a whole bunch of different dies. I can just lay one down on there, get them all lined up, and get them die cut out. So now I've got all of my pieces die cut out. I want to show you this. I love this. The packaging, those dies stay on there. There's a bit of magnetism in that. And so you can just keep your packages and keep your dies on it. That is a plus. Love that. Wanted to point it out. So I'm bringing in the Bows and Bells scallop frame from Spellbinders. You can find it in the shop. I'll link it up as well. And we're going to use that to create our panels to lay all of our beautiful things on. So I'm just showing you all the sentiments. Lots of thanks. Times to celebrate. Have a lovely day. And hello, friend. These are gorgeous. I love these sentiments. I love the stamp and die set and the stencil. It's really beautiful. You can create some gorgeous cards pretty quickly. So I'm just going to bring in some cardstock, and we're going to lay some panels down, and then we will have the base to put our gorgeous flowers on. We're actually going to create two cards. I wanted to do both stamps and show you both of them and show you how the stencil worked. And in doing that, we've got enough for two cards. So I was just showing you the dies that I used for these panels. And like I said, you can pick those dies up in the shop as well. And we're going to just create some layers here and just create a base layer to put our beautiful floral elements on. So we'll get some glue on here, and we will get this laid down on our other panel. And I'm going to take a minute and try to get them laid down there nice and straight. This Bells and Bows Scalloped die set from Spellbinders is one of my favorite. Now, I did use some adhesives from the shop that you can pick up in there. They're 3D foam strips. I've got 76 pieces, and I'm just going to use those to pop up my panel, add a little bit of dimension to my card, and it'll give us a nice resting place for our florals. So we'll get the release papers pulled off and we'll get this laid down. And my panel's large enough, it's going to cover the little tape runner that I use to hold my vellum down. Now we've got a nice little base for our design. So now we're ready to start building our floral elements. And what I'm going to do on this particular card is just, I'm going to kind of swag the corners, create 2 different swags and just put them on the corners, kind of like this, making sure that we leave plenty of room for our sentiment. And so I'm going to pop some of them up, glue some of them down, and we'll just have some various interest for our florals. So I'm just using these strips, and I'm going to add them to the back of my flowers, and we'll get them laid down on our card panel. And with the foam, we can kind of stick them off the edge of our panels, and they can kind of hang over into the vellum, and I think it looks very pretty. So we'll pull off that backer strip, and I'm just going to start tucking, and we're just going to just create a really pretty focal point. And I'm taking kind of the bigger of the pieces and putting them right on the corner, and then I'm filling in with the smaller pieces around those to just kind of create a cluster. And I think it's really pretty. And I think the cardstock that I chose really kind of helps add to the autumn or fall vibes that we've got going. And it blends beautifully with the ink that we used for the stenciling. So we've got our lots of thanks, and I was just making sure that I was leaving plenty of room for my sentiment. So I was just checking it out. And we'll go ahead and pop up this one here. What I'm doing is I'm going to put some foam on the edge of it because it's going to hang over. And I've got some layers going on there, so I'm just going to double it up. I'll put some glue on the bottom, some foam on the top, and then we'll get it laid down on our base and just tuck it in there. And that'll help it to lay nice and flat across those layers that we've got going on there. And I've decided to tuck another piece. I've got a corner of my vellum that is not wanting to lay flat, so I put a little bit of glue behind there, and that glue will show. So I'm just going to tuck another floral element there, and it'll just cover up the glue that I needed for my vellum so that it wouldn't curl. It was curling for whatever reason. So I'm going to double this one up, and I think I wind up having to cut it back. I think I've got a little bit too much foam for the layering that I've got going, so I will kind of fuss around with it, and then I'll realize that I need to cut it back to get it to lay the way that I need it to. So certainly you can, you know, remove some of that foam and make it work. So that's what I'm going to do. Just snip that off and put some more glue down there, and we'll get it tucked in. And that's going to work out really nice. And it'll cover up the fact that my vellum was wanting to pop up a little bit. So we've got our lots of thanks. We're going to get it laid down on there. And I'm just going to use my tweezers to hold it, and then I can add some glue to it. And we'll get it laid down on there. And we are going to do a second card, and it will come together quite a bit quicker just because I don't have as many elements to lay down. And I felt like I had some open space there, so I'm going to tuck some of the greenery down and just tuck it in and fill in a little bit of that space. And I think it's really pretty. Just love the Cozy Blooms. Now I've got a couple pieces here, and I'm just going to take and add one to the inside of this card, and then we'll have a little floral on the inside, and then we'll save the other one for the other card. I really like how this one turned out. Very fun. So now we're going to work with the big cluster of flowers. And I just took a cardstock, and I used the same die set, and I gutted the inside of the panel to create a frame. And I'm going to layer my vellum over it, and then I'll bring that frame back in. And you won't see that I've gutted the panel, but it just enabled me to layer that color and not have to use multiple panels of cardstock. So I'm just kind of stretching my cardstock by doing that. And I decided to go ahead and use these foam strips and just kind of fill in that area, and I'll lay my vellum down on that. And that'll give us some volume or some height. And then we'll add our panel back, and we can just glue it flat since we've got this raised. And there we go. So I'm going to line this up nice and neat and give it a good press. Now we'll bring in our cardstock panel and we'll get it laid down on there. And then we've got our floral element. All we need to do is just tuck it in and then add a sentiment. And we have got two fantastic cards with this stamp, stencil, and die set. Love it. So beautiful. And you could certainly choose to use your markers, your Copic markers, and color this as well. But since I had the stencil, I thought we'd just ink blend. So I'm going to bring in the Hello Friend, and I'm just going to add it to my florals. And we've got just a real pretty card for a friend. So we'll get it glued up, and we'll get it laid down here on our card base. And that'll finish up our card. I do have that little piece I can put on the center. Now I'll get this one laid down, and then I'll realize I have that leaf there, and so then we'll bring it in and we'll add it. So now I have used all of my pieces, all of my stamped images. And I'm just going to tuck it in there and add just an extra leaf. And there we go. So we've got our two cards finished. So here's the large floral, and then we've got our clusters. And I've got two more sentiments that I could use. So thanks for watching. I hope you have a great day. And do not forget to subscribe to the ScrapbookPal channel, where you'll find lots of inspiration and lots of fun products. Have a great day. Bye-bye now.